I really enjoyed the concept of WandaVision. To explore the stages of grief through the most powerful being on the planet. And to have that being express her grief through the old sitcom she used to watch with her family, which was the only time in her life she felt safe. It's really quite brilliant to have Wanda recreate the best shows from each decade in order to help her get through her stages of grief. But then there's every other aspect of the show. When the show starts and we're introduced to the people of Westview, it's not quite clear what's going on. The people seem happy and very much living in a sitcom. It's almost like Wanda had been pulled into an alternate dimension. Then we find out Westview is a real place with a real population that's gone missing. People in the town have episodes like they're coming out of a trance, and Vision finds out he can block the trance, only to find a confused, tortured person begging for help. The people on the outskirts of town that don't have much interaction with Wanda spend their lives doing the same task over and over again. Well, it turns out that the hero of our story had a mental breakdown, used her immense powers, and enslaved a whole town of people, making them all puppets in her fantasy. And then the townspeople get to speak, and we get to find out that Wanda is a real monster. This is what they had to say. When you let us sleep, we have your nightmares. Your grief is poisoning us. My husband is on a business trip. Tell him I love him, and not to come back here, ever. I don't recognize my face in the mirror, my voice when I speak. I used to try to resist you, but now I can't remember why. Do you? My name is Sarah. I have a daughter. She's 8. Maybe she can be friends with your boys, if you like that storyline. Or, the school bully. Really, anything. If you could just let her out of her room. If I could just hold her, please. That last one is what got to me, and cemented in my opinion that Wanda Maximoff is the most evil villain in the MCU. And then when Wanda is confronted with the reality that she's torturing a whole town of people, she decides to use her powers to choke all those people until they beg for death. This is your hero. Now, many have made the argument that Wanda didn't know what she was doing, that she was in some kind of psychosis. But I say that's rubbish. It's obvious she knew what she was doing. Every time something reminded her of reality, she would make it go away and reset her spell, making everything happy again. When Vision went out of the hex and was dying, Wanda paused the whole hex and went out to confront the military outside, and showed she was perfectly aware of everything that was going on. And then Wanda showed how evil she really was, by trapping Agatha forever in her sitcom personality, as if Agatha was the villain who needed to be punished. Monica Rambeau, don't let them make you the villain. Wanda, maybe I already am. You're damn right you are, Wanda. That's the only self-awareness that you've exhibited in the whole show. They'll never know what you sacrificed for them. Wanda enslaves over 3,000 people, takes away their free will, and makes them act like characters in a sitcom, not to mention choking the life out of them if they talk back. The only thing Wanda sacrificed was her tyranny. And that's a huge problem in this show. No matter what Wanda does, all the side characters keep acting like she's the victim. Monica Rambeau experienced Wanda's tyranny, and this is what she had to say. There was this feeling of keeping me down. This hopeless feeling, like drowning. It was grief. Monica was stuck as Wanda's slave until she had a moment of clarity and mentioned Ultron. And Wanda's response to Monica breaking character was to blast her out of a building, across town, and straight out of her hex, something that could have easily killed Monica. And for some reason, Monica says to her boss that that was Wanda's way of protecting her. Wake up, Monica! Wanda's the bad guy! Even that annoying girl from Thor and the FBI agent from Ant-Man and the Wasp are only in the show to convince the audience, and sometimes Vision, that Wanda is a good guy and not the actual villain of the story. They even take this idea into the Multiverse of Madness movie, where Doctor Strange dismisses Wanda's accountability by saying, "Well, I'm sure you're sorry about that." And the worst justification comes from Wanda herself. "I'm sorry, Wanda, but having guns doesn't make you bad. Enslaving 3,000 people, that's what makes you bad." WandaVision introduces SWORD, the new government agency that replaces S.H.I.E.L.D., and introduces us to Director Hayward, who this show tries really hard to make us believe that he's a villain, but in reality, he's the only one with any clarity of mind, and who's talking any kind of sense. The show wants you to believe that Director Hayward is a bad guy for taking Vision's body. But as Hayward himself puts it, we're not going to bury billions of dollars worth of vibranium and the most advanced robotics known to man. And the other bad thing Hayward did was try to stop a crazy person with unlimited power who took over and enslaved 3,000 people. I think we know who the bad guy and the good guy are in this story. So it looks like Marvel brought back Quicksilver, but not as the actor that played him in Age of Ultron. No, it was the actor that played him in the X-Men franchise, setting the internet on fire with questions about the multiverse. But alas, there was no universe hopping from Fox's X-Men franchise. No, the casting of Evan Peters was nothing more than a middle finger from Marvel and a boner joke. There's a saying in writing: if you show a gun in the first act, you have to shoot someone with it in the third act. Well, the MCU showed us a gun, and then threw it in the garbage in the third act. In sitcoms, there's always the nosy neighbor, usually an annoying character who always drops by for no reason. And in WandaVision, that annoying neighbor was Agatha. But Agatha seemed off. She didn't seem like she was in a trance like everyone else. She was overly helpful and seemed to know something. That, mixed with Wanda seeming like she didn't understand what was going on, led us to believe that everything was happening because Agatha was manipulating Wanda. And then we got confirmation that our theories were correct. The show gives us a song that tells us that Agatha is the villain behind everything. The hook of the song is "It was Agatha all along." And for a short time, we enthusiastically speculated how many of our other theories were correct. But that was short-lived, because the very next episode we find out that Agatha has no idea what's going on. She just sensed Wanda's immense power and came to see if she could steal some of it. And the Agatha All Along song, that was just another middle finger for the audience. This show had a great premise, a story about how grief and pain can cause you to do horrific things, and can turn good people bad. Geez, where have we seen that before? And WandaVision chose to show that grief in a new, entertaining, and original way. But they couldn't do it. They couldn't turn one of their superheroes into a villain, which is weird. Because Wanda is full-on evil when we see her in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So the show gives us weak excuses, trying to convince us that Wanda is the victim, and not a complete psychopath. And for the show, these excuses explain why, even though there's all these government agencies around, and Wanda clearly kept 3,000 people against their will, why no one is trying to stop her or arrest her, and they just let her go. But that doesn't sit right with me. They should have sent the Avengers in to stop Wanda, because she's a bigger monster than Thanos ever was.